did maths come from? Where did mathematics come from? This thing that worries us, where did it come from? Anyway, it started as accounting. Going by history, we learned that accounting is what gave birth to what today is known as mathematics. In other words, accounting is the embryo that actually developed into what is known today as mathematics. What is this accounting? Accounting is a practice of reconciling assets with liabilities. Asset means what we have. Liability means what we owe, not what we own, what we owe. You see, at the dawn of history of man, he did not feel any need to own anything because everything he wanted was available. Everything he wanted was available. There was no pressure in his heart to start gathering and to own things. He had everything. In time, though, error started and population explosion also followed. As a result, scarcity of resources started. It is not population explosion per se that caused the emergence of scarcity. It is the error. Man was created to multiply, but error was not to be a part of man's existence. If error had to come in, then man will have it rough. But coming, it did. Yes, error started. This platform is not going to explain what the error is. But just know it that error started some time in the past at the dawn of history of man. Followed by population explosion, man began to produce more children and scarcity started. That is, man started having less than what he needed. Scarcity of resources made man to gather, to own, to safeguard, to borrow, and to lend. It is natural for a man to know his status in terms of what he has. It is natural for a man to feel and get satisfied that he has. It is natural for a man to get the feeling from having that feeling of satisfaction, that feeling of joy that he has what he needs, is what he wants to have all the time. Assets will bring him happiness. Liabilities will bring him heartbreak, bitterness. So it became necessary. It became something regular for a man to once and again check whether he was having or he was owing. To measure what he had or owed, man started counting. Yes, to check how many things or what quantity of thing you have. You have to count, you have to measure, you have to quantify. In those days, man started using fingers to record what he had. These 5 fingers are the things man took off with in his effort to keep record of what he had. He could join the 10 fingers and use it to record what he had. As he had more possessions, the alchemy needs for him to use his tools also to measure and to keep record of his possessions. Now, do you think that if you were in the shoes of the ancient men or the ancient man, that this practice of keeping record with fingers and toes was to be sustainable? Could you have continued using toes and fingers to keep record of what you had and what you owed? Certainly no. Just like that man had it. That is, the man had a desire to keep records in a better way. In time, written symbols were invented. These symbols invented for counting are known as numerals. Today, we're not going to give the history of invention of numerals, but it is worthy of note that the most popular and the most widely used of all the numerals invented for the purpose of keeping records of having and owing were what today we know as the Hindu-Arabic numerals. There are 10 of such numerals. Watch the screen. You will find the symbols of the numerals that were invented for the purpose of counting, for man to keep record of what he had. Again, watch the screen. You could see from 0 to 9 as we know them today. If you count from 0 to 9, they are 10 in number. Because they are 10 in number, this is what we refer to as the decimal system of counting. That prefix deci referring to 10. It is from these 9 numerals that other higher numerals were derived by appropriate repetition. Take for instance, the 10 numerals ended at 9. Does it mean that man did not have a need to count things more than 9? He had. He could have 10. He could have 11, 12, to anywhere, depending on what was practically obtainable. So other higher numbers, apart from these 10, were obtained by combining these 10 numbers appropriately. Watch the board again to see how other higher numbers were generated from these 10 numbers or these 10 numerals. For instance, the next number after 9 is 10, 1 and 0, obtained by repeating the same numerals we have had before, 1 and 0. The next is 1, 1 to make 11. The next is 1, 2 to make 12. The next is 1, 3 to make 13. The next is 1, 4 to make 14, and so on and so forth. Now that the numerals have been invented, instead of using 5 fingers to keep record of what he owed or had, man had to use a symbol 5. Instead of using the 10 fingers in both hands to keep record of what he had or owed. Man had to use the symbol 10. That was an advancement. You agree with me? He could take whatever went into inventing the symbols, and you too, if you were in his shoes, would do the same thing. It actually brought relief to him in terms of keeping records. So far, it has become obvious that numerals were invented for the purpose of counting. So far, it has become obvious that numerals were invented for the purpose of counting. To count means to determine how many things there are. Now, we assume that a man had 5 tubers of yam in those days. To keep record of the 5 tubers of yam, he will write 5 tubers, as you see on the screen. 5 preceding, tubers succeeding, as you see on the screen. 5 now in symbol. No longer was there a need to bring the 5 fingers to make a more cumbersome, a kind of more difficult symbol. That symbol 5 is much easier than drawing 5 fingers. Here, the 5 is just a numeral, but because it counts something, it is called a number. This brings us to the need to differentiate between numbers and numerals. What is a numeral? What is a number? Anyway, a number is that counts something. A counter, any kind of arbitrary creation that counts how many things there are, is called a number. But a symbol for that number is called numeral. If you just write 5 in symbol without the 5 counting anything, we call it just numeral 5. But as we could see in the previous instance, we said 5 tubers of yam. Because the 5 is counting how many tubers here, 5 is not just called numeral anymore. It has graduated, it has put on an added meaning, and we now call it a number. So a number is a counter. A symbol for the counter is called numeral. In time though, man learned to differentiate between keeping record of what he had and keeping record of what he was owing. He felt the need to differentiate the record keeping of what he had from record keeping of what he owed. Not what he owned, but what he owed. Then, 2 other inventions came into existence. If he had 5 tubers of yam, for instance, he will record it as plus 5 tubers, as you see on the screen. Plus 5 tubers. The plus there that precedes the 5 shows that the 5 is what he had, not what he was owing somebody. On the other hand, if someone lent him 5 tubers of yam and he wanted to keep a record of this borrowing from that person, he could keep the record as minus 5 tubers, as you can see on the screen. The minus that precedes the 5 shows that that 5 is not what he had. It is what he was owing somebody. Therefore, plus and minus came to be the first among many symbols of mathematical operations we have come to know today. In fact, they are the bedrock upon which other mathematical operations are standing. Thus far, we conclude that by history, the plus sign came to mean having, and the minus sign came to mean owing. Earlier, I stated that man, just like today, would always feel the need to check his status in terms of material possessions. To do this, man had to therefore bring what he had and place what he had side by side with what he was owing. He checked everything he had, placed them together, assigning all plus. He brought all that he was owing all together and assigned them the sign minus. For what reason? For the reason that he that is owing must pay. And if he has to pay, he must pay from what he has. So, for man to know his status in terms of material possessions, he placed his assets side by side with his liabilities. From his assets, he took away some to settle his debt. It is after he has settled his debt that he will now know whether the result is deficit, whether he is still owing, or after paying his debt, that he now has some which he can call his own after he has done the settlement. Everybody, even you, would like to have after paying. So the man was not alone in his actions and his consents. Everybody wants to have. So after paying your debts from what you had, you always want to have more. It is this process of placing side by side assets and liabilities with view to knowing whether the end result is owing or having that we call accounting. Do you now see why I said that mathematics as we see today started as accounting? So far, we've not come to a point where we can get it more clearly, but I believe you're following the history. In time, accounting gave way to addition, because when accounting you will add, you will have to subtract, you will have to multiply and divide. So at a particular era in accounting, addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division became the dominant operations. And altogether, all the four put together became known as arithmetic. So, after the name accounting came another name, arithmetic. The original accounting was just adding, but because we had more operations to make them four in number, no longer only addition, that accounting produced an added meaning, making them call it arithmetic. So far we have seen that accounting gave birth to arithmetic. So arithmetic is operations with numbers involving addition of numbers, subtraction of numbers, multiplication of numbers, and division of numbers. It is these four basic operations of numbers that we refer to as arithmetic. In time, arithmetic grew beyond addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of numbers. That is, the operations that were needed to carry out arithmetic became more than four in number. This came as a result of necessity. There arose a need to carry out other operations apart from these four. As a result, the name had to shift again from arithmetic. Why? Because of the added number of operations to the former four. When more operations were added to arithmetic, it now put on a new name. And what is it? Mathematics. That is what that name has been till today. So mathematics has remained the name of arithmetic in a more complex form till today. So whenever you hear mathematics, it is advanced arithmetic. Arithmetic that involves more than four basic operations in numbers. Today, we have operations like squares, square roots. We have so many other things that we carry out with numbers. They are no longer supposed to be under the umbrella of arithmetic. Because of these added operations, the name now came to be called mathematics. So, summarizing this evolution, we have it that counting led to invention of numbers. That is, numbers were invented for the purpose of counting. And then scarcity caused man to go into accounting. As the accounting progressed, it formed arithmetic. As arithmetic became more complex, it became known as mathematics. That is the origin of mathematics. So we were right in the beginning when we said that accounting is the bedrock, or was the bedrock, upon which the modern mathematics is standing. The embryo that grew into what we today know as mathematics.